Well, we're back for another Chris Macpherson Show Daily Dose, and it's time to talk Australia Cup again. And the round of 16 is just about upon us, the round of 32 in the rear vision mirror. And we welcome back in a very familiar face in Harry Scobie. Harry, good to have you back.
Thanks for having me, Chris. It's lots happened in the past, I guess you could say, past few days, and looking forward to diving into it with you.
Yeah, well, there's certainly plenty to talk about. Some cup sets as always, some very straightforward wins for other teams, and some very interesting matchups. And I guess we're probably going to look forward a little bit more than we look back, but undoubtedly in looking forward at the round of 16 and then the draws from there, we will undoubtedly start to talk about, how those teams have gotten to where they are. So let's cast our eye and rather than do it in the order that the draw came out, I'm going to have a look because for those who didn't catch the draw last night after the conclusion of the round of 32 matches, the final games on the Wednesday. Basically, what happened was they drew out the round of 16 matchups. They then drew which of those matchups would play through into the quarterfinals and semi-finals through random draw. So we know exactly what the brackets are now from here, as opposed to when we sat down for the round of 32 show with Lachlan Avil, where we just knew that the winners would go to the round of 16. So let's start. One of the biggest clubs in the NPL in terms of their brand and their name has drawn the newest club in the A-League, Harry. South Melbourne will take on Auckland FC. South Melbourne came through with a tight win over South Hobart. Many thought they'd blow South Hobart away down there, but they weren't exactly convincing 2-1. Auckland, though, in their first 4-8, really good a couple of nights ago, 4-0 against the Gold Coast Knights, doing what they needed to get through to the round of 16 for the first time.
Yeah, huge for South Melbourne to have a team like Auckland. I can imagine their fans would be very excited for this, especially considering off the back of the campaign Auckland had last season. I think I'm going to have to disagree a little bit with you, Chris. I wasn't overly impressed with Auckland. I think some of their goals were a bit scrappy, to be honest. I think three of them were a bit of scrambles in the box. Don't get me wrong, that fourth goal from Liam Gillian, absolute stunner. They could have had more goals on the night, but I just feel like this will be a difficult test for them. But I'm sure they'll build for the upcoming A League season. But in terms of this game, very excited for it up at South Melbourne, where we always know the atmosphere is quite loud and boisterous up there. So a huge test for Auckland as well to be their second time facing an NPL opposition. Yeah, really keen to see how they go against South Melbourne.
Well, it's an interesting one, and we'll get to a couple of the other teams that were victims of cup sets, I guess. But in terms of how clubs approach this, we saw a lot of the A-League clubs, even some of the ones that did proceed through, certainly looked a little bit more youthful, certainly weren't going in with full-strength lineups because, I chatted with Mark Milligan last night after the Adelaide-Newcastle game, and, he talked about that. A lot of these teams are only 4 or 5 weeks into their pre-seasons.
Yeah, and that plays a huge factor. I think depending on your opposition, you sort of be a bit mindful whether you do play your big guns or not. We saw last night, obviously, me and you and Chris at the Adelaide game, we saw a bit of a taste there. And what it is I guess, and we say this a fair bit, but it's a chance for those youngsters to step up and show what they are worth. And to be fair, there has been some youngsters that have come through and taken the opportunity with both hands, which is really exciting to see, especially in a Australia Cup like this. So you feel like if the comp keeps on progressing like this, we can develop these young players. They'll be definitely getting more game time, but I'd assume that the more teams develop into the further stages of the comp, their big guns would start to play and build for the A League season.
Yeah, you think so? You think they'll start to shape into some more minutes, starting to see more of them starting. Still see some rotations at different points, but we'll wait and see. Speaking of A-League sides, the winner of the South Melbourne Auckland game will play host. Well, depending on who wins, obviously South Melbourne and Auckland. If South Melbourne win, they'll play host. If Auckland win, they will travel against the winner of Sydney United 58 and Sydney FC, a Sydney derby. We've seen some of these previously in the Cup. They're always, a really enthralling clash. It is the NPL club up against Big Brother. So how do you see this one shaping up?
Yeah, another interesting one, another one that sort of caught my eye when the draw did come out. This game, I think it's going to be a really interesting one. I think for Sydney FC, they only just scraped through the other night against Western United, but I still feel like they were quite good on the night. But for Sydney United, a huge chance at home as well to stake their claim in front of what is usually a strong home showing from the Sydney United supporters. So I feel like they could sort of do a sort of what Apia did in the cup last night, where a bit of a underdog who went and got the job done. I know we'll touch on them later, but I feel like Sydney United could be this team that be similar to up here in a way and go on a bit of a cup run. It's not easy. I'm sure both sets of fans will be out, being it is in Sydney, not far for the Cove and Sydney FC to travel. So yeah, huge game this one. I think Sydney will just prevail, but I think Sydney United will, as they always do, put up a good fight.
Yeah, I agree. I think, when we have a look at, Sydney United, they're a challenging team and probably not performing quite where they want to in the NPL at the moment, a bit like South Melbourne, and we probably glossed over that. South Melbourne having a really tough season in the Victorian NPL. Sydney United sitting mid-table. They're a very proud club in terms of how they go about things, in terms of that B League, all those sorts of things. We know they've got their eyes firmly fixed on that sort of stuff, but they'd love nothing more than to knock over Big Brother here. I think those Sydney FC will be one side that we will see take this, reasonably seriously, because there will be some bragging rights on the line. And as much as, we see these teams from the A League maybe sometimes take these games as development opportunities, I think when it comes to, domestic rivalries inside, those sorts of pieces, and again, Sydney United for a long time in the NSL days were one of the big brothers of this, region.
Yep.
Sydney FC will be very firmly wanting to put their footprint on this and get the win, and maybe then either head to South Melbourne or potentially host Auckland FC in the quarterfinals. So we'll wait and see. But that shapes up. No matter what happens there, it's going to be really exciting. When we head to the next segment, again, we see two NPL or state league clubs, I guess, not NPL, both of them, hosting A-League opponents. The first of those is the Cinderella story that is Nunawading City, the third or fourth tier of Victorian football. I think the third tier of Victorian football. They started with an absolute bang. They broke the record for the biggest winning margin in Australia Cup finals rounds history with a 9-0 drubbing of Darwin Olympic. Admittedly, Darwin Olympic had a player sent off, but the damage was already done at that point. I think it was 3-0 at that point, and it was just a rapid descent from there. Nunawading absolutely made the most of the trip to the tropics, and they've set up now a clash with a Wellington Phoenix side who they had to get through the Australia Cup playoffs. They then had to travel to Perth. They then had to get through a lightning delay, went all the way to a penalty shootout. It was absolute scenes. It was some sort of game. I thought it was nice and fitting that the two teams that won the playoffs then had to play against each other. But I think the penalties, I think we got down to like the 18th penalty taker overall, 9 for each side before we got a result. So, what a roller coaster that was. Two really cool stories on very different fronts.
Yeah, exactly, Chris. He sort of stole the words that I was going to say, because each team coming into this has got their own sort of background in the cup so far. I think for Wellington last week, God, they experienced everything. They had a lightning delay, and to be fair, I think they were behind quite early in that shootout as well. So for them to come back the way they did, that'll take a lot of confidence for them. But for Nunawading, I mean, what a game last time out. I mean, 9-0. I think as well, Chris, they take a lot of confidence from that, especially against an A-League opposition. Usually you see a bit of nerves creep in, but I feel like when you're finding the back of the net so consistently like they have been, it's a huge chance. And I think Wellington's a side who, me personally, if I was to give my early A-League prediction, I don't see going too far into the comp this season. So it's a huge chance for them, and a huge chance for Giacomo Italiano's side to keep progressing, but a lot riding on this game.
Yeah, there certainly is. It's going to be interesting to see expectation on the Phoenix to progress, how they handle that, when they're coming up against a team that sits, quite a number of steps lower. I think they're in the VPL2, which is the third tier, as I said, of Victorian football at the moment, Nunawading City. It's a wonderful story. I mean, if they could somehow make a quarter final, that would be absolutely epic for them. But it's going to be a big task, as we say, coming up against an A-League side, whether or not they're, a top six or a bottom six A-League side, as you're sort of predicting for the season ahead. I'll tell you what, this next one is, realistically one of the best sides in terms of the ladder last year in the Western Sydney Wanderers, heading to one of the, if not the best side in NPL football in Australia. Heidelberg United, they were the draw that certainly if you're any club who's not an A-League club, you do not want. And even as an A-League club, these guys, a bit like Apia, have certainly got the ability to be a giant killer. So the Wanderers, they were really strong. I got to watch them in person up against Peninsula Power. Their first half was clinical. They kind of, look, I won't say they took their foot off the accelerator, but I think Peninsula stepped up in the second half against them. Heidelberg, though, they came up against, a team that we know well in Western Bears. And look, Western were, certainly not dishonoured in their effort, but Heidelberg were a level above.
Yeah, they were, and I think being from Newcastle, we would have hoped Western would have progressed, but I think Heidelberg were too strong on the day, and they've usually got quite a good record in the cup. Usually it's about this sort of round where they sort of bow out, but I feel like a game like this, and they got some passionate fans down there in Heidelberg as well, so I think a huge game for them up against the Wanderers side, who, like you said, Chris, I think was it 3-0 at half time against Peninsula Power. And like you mentioned, you sort of see that with teams sometimes taking their foot off the gas pedal in that second half. Heidelberg at home, I quite like their chances, to be honest, against the Wanderers side, who we've only seen on a couple of occasions this season, whether it's been in the Oz Cup. Don't get me wrong, the Wanderers were quite impressive against Power, I thought. I thought they had more to offer, and once they start gelling across the season, they'll only get better. I feel like we could be seeing this one to penalties, Chris. I feel like it could be headed into extra time. Who wins from there, I'm not sure. I'd probably lean more towards Wanderers, but I feel like Heidelberg will match them for at least 90 minutes. And yeah, the thing I love about this as well, it's an NPL versus A-League club, and we don't have A-League matchups in the round of 16. So another chance for an NPL club to take advantage and get a huge win at home.
Well, when we look at this one, as you say, there's three matchups in this half of the draw that are A-League clubs against NPL, and then obviously there is the Wellington Phoenix versus Nunawading game. How many non-A-League clubs do you see progressing in this half of the draw, Harry? That's the big question.
I say one NPL club progress. I feel like the Heidelberg game. I'd feel like there could be a little twist there. So I feel like they could be the side that might progress. I think Sydney United, Sydney FC will be close, but I think Sydney will just get the edge there. And I'm quite confident in Auckland and Wellington as well. So safe to say most A-League clubs will go through. I just can feel a upset on the cards at Heidelberg.
Well, the good news is that we won't have the very awkward scenario at the end of the draw of a final having to be played in New Zealand because Auckland and Wellington are on opposite sides of the draw and get all the way through, which would have been a very weird one. But we could have a semi-final in New Zealand of the Australia Cup, which it doesn't quite sit right with me, but it is what it is, Harry.
Yeah, yeah. There's been a lot of chat around will Auckland host and Wellington host a game in New Zealand. But obviously keen to see how both teams progress.
Well, I think now Wellington can't host the game because of how the draw is. Only Auckland could, because the only way they can host the game is if they play each other.
Yeah,
So it'd be interesting to see. So you've got Auckland, Sydney, Wellington, and Heidelberg going through.
yeah.
I've got South Melbourne, Sydney, Wellington, and Wanderers going through. Who is your then semi-final from there? Because and again, we'll revisit these when we get to the quarterfinals, of course, because both of us will probably be way off the mark. I've got a Sydney FC and Western Sydney Wanderers semi-final on this side.
Yeah, I'm pretty similar with you, Chris. We look at it now. I think Wellington will take down Heidelberg, and then I think, to be honest, I'm thinking Sydney more over Auckland at the minute, just because of what I've seen in the last few weeks. Even though Auckland had a big win against Gold Coast, I still feel like Sydney have got more to offer. And once they get a full strength team out, I feel like if they are to progress against Sydney United, they'll go on and get the job done against Auckland if they do progress past South Melbourne.
All right, well, we'll leave the semi-final winners and final predictions for as we get a little bit closer. We'll head to the other half of the draw where our Newcastle Jets, the jersey that you're proudly representing there, Harry, will play. But first up, we've got a section of the draw that's all full of NPL clubs. We are guaranteed at least one NPL semi-finalist because of this. So let's start. Avondale FC, they came through with a 5-1 win over Sterling Macedonia at home. They're at home again, and this time they take on an RPA Leichhardt side. Now, a lot of people are calling this a cup set, but when you look at that Melbourne City lineup, I tell you what, I would have been close to backing RPA when the lineups dropped. We know that they get up for the cup. This RPA side probably not as star-studded and packed as that side that knocked out Melbourne Victory a number of years ago under the coaching of Daniel Cummins, but still a side that you can't take lightly at this level.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think you summed it up brilliantly again. I think they're a team who, they might not have the experience or the guidance around, but they're just doing it year in year out, aren't they? And they've produced some incredible upsets. I don't think this is up there with one of the biggest. I think the last 2 years or however long it's been against the Wanderers and Victory, I think those wins have been more higher in terms for them. But I feel like another statement win, you could say, a little bit last night, especially against the City side who trialled, had a couple of youngsters on the pitch as well. Like you said, they were full of youngsters last night. So I wasn't expecting Uppy to cruise past them, but I'm not totally surprised, especially considering their record in the cup that they did progress. So up at Avondale again, a really tricky one that I think definitely keep an eye on. I feel like RPA might just have the edge, just because that A-League win last night against Melbourne City just gives them a huge bit of confidence. And it feels like a while since Avondale actually played. I think they were like in one of the first match days in the round of 32. So I think RPL will just have the edge on them.
It might be bragging rights of is NPL Victoria better than NPL New South Wales, and that's always a very hotly contested conversation because these are the two teams that are both sitting in second place in their respective leagues. Avondale second, they're 3 points behind Heidelberg at the moment, chasing, of course, and then Apia again, exactly the same margin, 3 points behind NWS Spirit in the New South Wales NPL. So might be a little bit of bragging rights. I'm sure whoever wins will say that that's what it is, that it's bragging rights. Whoever loses will say, oh, it's got nothing to do with which NPL is better. Our NPL is better. So we love that rivalry. We're looking forward to this. It's good to see that, as I said, we will have an NPL side represented in the not only the quarterfinals but the semi-finals as well. The next game, the winner of this will take on. It will be the winner of Brisbane City up against Olympic Kingsway. So Brisbane City from Queensland, Olympic Kingsway from the West. Olympic Kingsway were one of the ones who, they got a 4-0 win over Olympic FC. Brisbane City got a 2-0 win over Olympic FC in that derby. Olympic Kingsway were, of course, the ones in extra time who knocked out Melbourne Victory on Tuesday night.
Yeah, I just want to firstly touch on Kingsway. That's huge for them, especially what I really liked about the Kingsway game is their courage to come from behind on multiple occasions. I think it's not easy against an A-League side, let alone any side to come from behind multiple times. I think anyone would say the same thing. It's really hard to find that grit, and I think it was about 2 minutes or not even that 1 minute to go, and they found the equaliser and went on from there. So yeah, really happy for Kingsway. And then on the other hand, you got a strong team in Brisbane. So I think this one could go all the way. I feel like both teams would be matching it for the 90 minutes. I think Kingsway, just with the travelling, I think Brisbane might get the upper hand in this one. But I feel like it'll be a great battle nonetheless.
Certainly will. A very familiar face in that Kingsway side to Northern New South Wales NPL fans. Mitch Oxborough, formerly Newcastle Jets, Perth Glory, and I think maybe Brisbane Roar for a little while was a key part of that win. And having having players like that can really go a long way to bolstering how you're going. And to be fair, NPL WA, it's continuing to build. They're sitting second in their competition. They do come up against this Brisbane City side who are sitting eighth in the NPL Queensland out of 12 teams. So again, not having the season they probably want in the league, so they'll be very much targeting the cup.
Yeah, we've seen that with some NPL teams as well this season, Chris. If the success isn't happening in the league and you do progress this far in the cup, you want to, take the opportunity with two hands and give it your best shot. So I feel like huge for both teams this one. I feel like this is we talk again about the bragging rights of the NPL, but I think maybe Brisbane, especially at home as well. I feel like that Kingsway crowd was what got them home against a victory, and I feel like Brisbane's home crowd may have the bit of the edge to get over Kingsway.
Well, it'll certainly be interesting to see. As we said, this might really jostle out the bragging rights, whoever can progress through this little quadrant with Avondale, Apia, Brisbane City, Olympic, Kingsway. You talk about sides that aren't having the season they might have desired in the NPL, and it brings us to Newcastle. We saw Sydney versus Sydney United. That got some eyes popping when that came out in the draw. We actually made light of it last night with the chat with Mark Milligan after the game, asking him, when you're looking forward to this draw, and again, it was 15 minutes before the draw was done, how much would you love the derby against Cooks Hill? And he talked about what it would mean to Newcastle, what it would mean to people in the region, what it would mean for football in the region. And then all of a sudden, it popped out of the draw. Cooks Hill not having the best of NPL, so it's actually played a concurrent game, a catch-up game. They've got a number of catch-up games to play in the Northern New South Wales NPL and went down on Wednesday night. That all but mathematically ended their season in the NPL. They will be firmly looking to add some silverware to the fact that they won the Northern New South Wales State Cup the weekend before. But wow, what a task up against the Newcastle Jets. It'll be interesting to see how Mark Milligan approaches this, as for a lot of these A-League clubs. But looking at last night, some of those young guys, most notably young Max Cooper, they were very impressive.
Very impressive. And this is where I guess you sort of rely on those younger players when you don't have a full strength team to come on and make an impact. And I thought Max Cooper handled himself, yeah, really well at the back. And it's not an easy job coming in starting as a centre back, and he handled himself really well. So it's really positive that Mark Milligan knows he can lean on those youngsters for the near future. And like you said, Chris, like what a busy schedule it is for Cooks Hill as well. They've had a taste of silverware, obviously, with the State Cup. And yeah, when that draw happened, I know the Jets were quite happy with it. I'm sure the whole of Newcastle is. So it's an exciting time, again, that I'm obviously looking forward to. And like you said, really positive for our Jets as well to see them shine last night, and a couple of youngsters who really stepped up. So really keen to see how we line up as well, whether we do bring the likes of Eli Adams and Lockie Rose back into the squad, or whether they are given another week if we do progress. So yeah, really keen for this one.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. Obviously, another couple of weeks of pre-season. I know Mark Milligan was talking about being through their first block and how that all shapes up, but not a lot of time to turn around. We know these games will be played between the 9th and the 13th of August with dates to be set. But again, that one will be an absolute bumper one. It's going to be a big job for Cooksville United. But again, they're the stories that make the cup. The story that I love out of it, Chris Zoricic actually does coaching in the Newcastle Jets Academy, the coach of Cooksville United. So I don't know if he's going to have any intel, like, undoubtedly on players like, like a Max Cooper. He'd know him very well.
Yeah, I actually didn't know that stat about Chris Orich. I know he's previously played for the Breakers or something, Newcastle United, something along those lines.
Way
But
back when, yeah.
yeah, exactly. But I wasn't exactly aware that he's doing some coaching in the academy now. So yeah, whether he has has a bit of an input, we'll soon find out.
Well, I think he helps out Damien Zane with the academy side. Who Damien, we do some commentary in the Northern New South Wales NPL with him. He's the academy coach there, so he'll have. It'll be interesting to see what intel and he might be able to lean on, because he's going to need absolutely every string in his bow, Zorro. So we'll wait and see. The
Yeah,
final game, the winner of this will take on Cooksville United or Newcastle Jets. Northeastern Metro Stars up against the defending champions Macarthur FC, the sleeper. They came out right at the bottom of the draw. This is an interesting one. Metro Stars had a convincing win over Canberra Croatia last night, 4-0. Macarthur also a convincing win, blowing away SD Raiders, 5-0. That one was probably a little more expected from the defending champions, the two-time champions. The SD Raiders play in the New South Wales League One, so the third tier of Australian football. Local rivals, local neighbours to Macarthur, but a golfing class.
yeah, just on another level. I thought Macarthur were. I think I think Macarthur always get up for the cup each and every year. Ever since they've entered the A League and formed as a club, they've always penciled the Australia Cup in their calendar, and we've seen them do really well over these past few years when they've been in the cup. So I think I'm going to go for a comfortable Macarthur win, up at Adelaide. So is Adelaide right? It is. Yeah, I feel like Macarthur will get the job done up there. Yeah, they just shined the other night against SD Raiders. They looked really good. I think the experience of Bratton and Caceres is huge for them this year, just in the middle of the park there. Um, Also got a couple of other youngsters who have really stepped up this season, like Harry Sawyer. I feel like he might be his sort of breakout season in the A League this season. But yeah, if we look at recent records, Macarthur very strong in the cup, and I'm backing him to get it done here.
Well, it's going to be interesting. So, who have you got going through here? You've gone Apia,
Apia,
Brisbane
yeah,
City,
yeah,
Newcastle Jets, and Macarthur. The good news is if
Macarthur.
Macarthur wins, that means another game in Newcastle for you, Harry. So,
It
irrespective of
does.
whether Cooksville or Newcastle win, Cooksville, if they win, they'll be at home. Newcastle, if they win, need Macarthur to win, because obviously the A League, all A League clash. So yeah, I'm going Avondale. I've got
Yeah,
Olympic Kingsway beating Brisbane City.
yeah,
And then, yeah, I'm going the Jets and Macarthur as well.
yeah.
That will be the Jets' equal furthest progression in the Australia Cup. Obviously, Macarthur, has been a couple of time winners, so we'll see how that shapes up. But then I'll have Avondale. You're not going to love this, Harry. I've got Avondale playing Macarthur in the semi-final.
Really, I I don't even see Avondale winning against Apia. To be fair, I
No,
can't
that's
see it
that's okay.
happening.
That's okay. But who have you got in your semi-final, mate? That's what we want to know.
I think it's. I'll go Apia Jets. I want it to happen. I feel like it might happen. I just feel like on the back of a big win against an A League club, it might happen.
Are you tipping with your head or your heart here, Harry?
Heart.
That's okay. That's okay. We all have our crosses to bear. That's all right, mate. But look, we're waiting for the dates to drop. We're really looking forward to it. This is going to be a really congested window for these games as they shape up. Those games, as I said, for the round of 16, we played between the 9th and 13th of August. And it'll be a quick turnaround to the quarterfinals, the 19th and 24th of August, and then into September for the semi-finals. We'll probably sit back down as we head to either the quarters or the semis. Harry, have a bit of a chat. We might even see if we can wrangle the elusive Matty Butner in, the great man, and have a bit of a chat. We've enjoyed that, and I'm sure we'll be back to talk some more football in the very near future. But as always, Harry, if people are looking for more of your content around the Newcastle Jets and all the wonderful stuff that you cover, where can they find you?
Newey Jets football on also I think Spotify, Instagram, TikTok. Instagram and TikTok are probably the more ones where I'm most active. So you can find me on there. And yeah, thank you for having me, Chris.
Always good to chat with you, Harry. Thanks again, and thank you everyone for tuning in. We'll bring you another daily dose in the not too distant future.